All right. On today's episode, we interviewed Ned MacPherson and we talked a lot about what it looks like to start a company from scratch, grow it rapidly, right? And then ultimately what it looks like to actually make an exit to, a software private equity group and all the things and considerations. And more importantly, right, one of the things that was kind of really interesting to me was just seeing how passionate Ned was about getting a second bite of the apple, right? And it helped me how that deal went about, how they structured it, and what he's excited about doing now.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, one, Ned's energy is incredible. So
Loved it too.
it's just great energy.
Hyper-focused,
You
good
know,
energy.
hyper focused. But he said something in there I think that everybody can learn from. It's like, why would I focus on anything else when this is it, right? And so when you see it and you know it, it's about that focus and it's going after it. Incredible. And then that passion around, being just, hey, look, private equity, when you work with them and they come around, there's just things you're not going to know.
Yeah, he said it perfectly. I mean, just assume you're probably naive, right? If there's something that it's
Yeah.
rubbing you the wrong way, it's probably due to your naivety, right? And you got to go out there, get educated, and keep the deal moving forward, right? Don't let it just be this blocker that terminates the deal because, in his case, good offer, good situation, didn't even try to, get greedy, right? A lot of people get greedy trying to negotiate the deal as much as they can. No, keep it moving forward. And then again, don't be naive to kind of create those barriers that stop the deal from happening.
Yeah, this was a great podcast.
All right, we'll dive right in.
Hey guys, go ahead and just pause the podcast for a second. When you're buying a business, you need to ensure the financial health of the company. The quality of earnings is mission critical. It doesn't matter what size business you're buying. Patrick O'Connell Advisory Group, they're dynamic. They do a great job. They're going to look over your shoulder. They're going to make sure that you're doing the right thing. And this guy's done over 200 buyers successfully, just like you. So reach out to him. And it's O'ConnellAdvisoryGroup.com. Click the link in our show notes. Can't live without this.
All right. Hey, Ned, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
You bet, man. So something a little bit more near and dear to my heart, right? Really talking about software and the journey that you've been on. And I know we were talking a little bit before the show, would love to maybe share with the audience a little bit as kind of, maybe some of the background, right? How you landed with what you're currently working on. And then we can kind of dive into how that started to propagate and what's going on there.
Yeah, sure. So I'll kind of give you the whole storyline here. So traditionally, my education was centered on statistics, kind of what I fell in love with in kind of college age and university age. And so got into the real world, didn't pursue a job, had the entrepreneurial bug and started a couple little outfits, none of which did great, to be candid. Or to be
Because
honest,
statistically, if you did enough of them, one of them will work, right?
Exactly.
That's the goal. That's why you keep going.
It's a numbers game, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of had my breakthrough after about 3 years of doing that, where I was in actually a Vistage group, which is like a network for CEOs that exist out there. And so I was in my Vistage group and talking about this data model that I had built out, just using my stats background for my then company that I had, which was a nutraceutical brand, basically, building out different nutraceutical products and selling it through a marketing ecosystem. And so one of the other members in the Vistage group pulled me aside after, and she was like, "That's super interesting. Like, how did you do that?" And so I went and did a little free consultation for her, and then realized after doing this that there might be a lot of businesses that really struggle on how to synthesize their data, like what consumers are doing, what they're not doing, how you can create predictive models. And so I did a little free project for her, and it went over really well. They really appreciated it. And she introduced me to another outfit who just straight up was like, "I'll pay you X on the side to do this." And so it was just this little side thing that I was doing. That went well, turned into 2 side gigs, then it turned into 3. And it's like the classic, before you knew it, my side hustle, so to speak, was yielding more of a personal income than my main company was. So that's where things are interesting. And I closed a pretty substantial organization in terms of, again, helping them rebuild their analytics stack, synthesize data, and show them how to convert better on their website. Now I had to make a decision. So I ultimately made the decision to exit my interest in that business to my old partners. And then I went full time into this model, which I didn't even know how to call it at the time. It was just like the data guy kind of thing. So I started
let's
to do
hop
it.
in really quick. Let's hop in right there, just because it's always about the start, right? And that first client, what did you actually do for her, right? Was it you just pulled up her Google Analytics and you said, "Hey, let's go talk through this, and here's some, if you did this, this could happen. Here's how I set up." I mean, what exactly were you solving for her?
Yeah,
that, helped you identify the gap in the market.
You nailed it right there, which is she's like, this is what we sell. I mean, there was very little understanding on her end as to the ability to affect change in the environment, in that case, the website, to generate more revenue. Her interpretation was, it's all about the ad and it's all about the price. And then you put those together and you get a sale. She didn't know that there was this thing called a conversion rate on her site that actually could be moved. And depending on how you move it, had had huge impacts across the ecosystem, not the least of which is like, yeah, the first purchase unit economic, but also CAC to LT, customer acquisition costs. You can start now to open the aperture and advertise to more individuals if you can increase your conversion rate because you have a more effective engine, which is your website or your application or whatever it is. And so what I did quite literally there is just found they were selling tickets to events. And I just found these massive intrafunnel drop-offs at certain steps in the ticket flow. And then I literally just went through the flow myself as a user. And I'm like, this is terrible. Like, I hate this experience. Just as a user, I see why the data's weak here. And then we concentrated ideation and changes there, literally design and develop different changes, tighten the flow up, made the value propositions. I think they had these unique discount strategy that needed more explanation. And then lo and behold, conversion rates went up 20, 30, 40%. And all of a sudden we're unlocking all this revenue, right? That would have been there, but they just weren't converting well.
It's amazing. I've looked at Google Analytics and all that stuff myself, and I'm probably like she is. It's like, huh?
Yeah, right.
To be able to look into it and drive that information, it's like, wow.
Well, but
For sure. And what's a fun analogy to it is if you look at like Walmart's, we may walk into like a Walmart and think it's arbitrary how they set those aisles up. It's not. It's entirely data driven from where certain products are at the average male or female eye line to what directions people go. That's all data driven. So a lot of times we'll just walk in and be like, oh, they just put up aisles and whatever. And it's like, no. Everything is very carefully placed. It's the same concept, but in a digital realm, right? So,
and maybe another way to think about it really is Casey understands how to sell widgets, right? But it's really building up the KPIs on top of, Casey's delivery experience. And that's really what you do, right? It's kind of like at Equity Launchpad, right? One of the things we like to say is we take it from family owned to management led. So what are the things that happen in that world, right? Well, I may be a seller. I own the business. I've had it for 40 years. I know it makes money. I take money out. I put money in, whatever it is, right? I know the high level of the business, but very much can I drill down into each product and did we profit on each one of them or not? And really build out the KPIs to give us the discipline and the acumen to make good business decisions, right?
Yeah, it's another data-driven way to scale. Yeah, without question. So that's quite literally, how I executed on it. And then as you can imagine, there's a lot of businesses that could use that type of support. And so I started, doing it on the side. And then again, I went full time with it and, made a ton of mistakes in how to start a business. But at the time, frankly, I was really just a hired gun. I didn't have employees.
What type of time frame was this?
This is 2016 at this point, 2017. Right. By 2018, I couldn't handle any more business. I was, having a great lifestyle, tons of cash flow, but it was just me. So I decided in 2018, I was going to scale and I was going to create an agency. So January 2019, I started Endrock, which was my agency, if you will, and scaled it up to about 120 people on the team. And then we went into due diligence in September of 2023. So last year, almost exactly a year ago, and then went through our exit. We got acquired successfully. December 4th, we signed to 2023. So a little less than 5 years to the date of founding the company, we exited. It was a really great experience.
And all those previous businesses you started, tilled the soil, got you ready to be able to grow and be able to be thinking about it, right? That's
learn all the mistakes to make sure not to make on the last one, right?
Right. And there's kind of the specialized skill set of like synthesizing data and running conversion optimization. And then there's I guess it's also a separate specialized skill set of like, how do you build a company? And that's something I had floundered with several times and made every mistake you can imagine, like across the board. And then, exactly to your point, learn from a lot of those. I went hyper lean in the beginning, hyper lean. Profitability was the only metric that mattered for the whole time. And I kept daily ledgers. It was almost kind of sick to this point, but like everything was dialed in, right? And so, I was very specific on how to build it. Never took any outside investment in, never took any partners on. It was a lot of fun and I'm continuing to do it. I'm still doing the same service with who acquired us. Now we're just, we're an 800 person agency versus a bit over 100.
Pretty amazing. We had a podcast last week with a gentleman that talked about he has a program about the different stages of a company and the different behaviors of a CEO in each of those stages and how to grow. It's called the rewilding, and he'll be part of our conference in October. But one of the things, it's kind of like what you're saying. It's like, hey, at the very beginning in these first segments of your business, it's sell, profitability before we shift to adding and trying to grow the business. It's like, let's get as profitable as possible.
Yeah.
And it's pretty powerful.
Yeah. There's times you focus on profitability, times you focus on just people, right? Times you focus on just pure growth without profitability. And if you, there's the different cycles of the company and you get success in the end.
Yeah, for sure. Sure. I kept kind of these interesting elastic KPIs in terms of like personnel sentiment and profitability. And like we'd always, if we wiggled too close to hyper profitable, you'd start seeing internal challenges. You know,
Yeah.
people would be getting upset clearly because there was
Yeah.
just too much work on their shoulders. Right. And then vice versa, I could use that metric when we were a little too bloated and always trying to stay in that threshold. Yeah, we were able to have a super profitable company and scale really fast. So
Yeah, and and I think you talk about it like it's easy, right? But at the same time, it's success. A lot of times, it's about making the mistakes beforehand, right,
yep.
and continuing to work through it, and then riding wave whenever it presents itself, right. And once an opportunity presents itself, you have to be able to have the wherewithal to go ride that wave. And
Yeah.
again, data science. I mean, you couldn't have been in a better timing, right? I remember, I mean, being a tech guy, 2018 to 2022, you couldn't hire enough data scientists, right? It was
Correct.
all everybody was talking about. Which it's funny. I was listening to something. I think it was yesterday. They're talking about there's the opposite problem, right? There's too many data scientists now and there's a lot less demand. But that
Yeah.
that time period is whenever the world was starting to grow up and
Yeah.
understand how the web and data works, right? We kind of hit that like web 3.0 layer, so to speak, where people are starting to figure out how do we really streamline a lot of these things.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Never, yeah, exactly. I mean, it was good timing, never turned down opportunity. You know, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I did 3, 4 months of light free work for clients that everyone was like, you're crazy. Why would you do that? And it yielded some huge referrals. So
Yeah, and
it's
you're
like,
and you're also
really glad
proving
I
up your
did.
concept. You're just sitting there, you're proving up your concept. You're
Yeah,
reiterating it over and over again, and it's those repetition.
yeah,
For a lot of the
yeah.
people that listen to our podcast, right? A lot of these listeners are looking to go out and buy and acquire a business,
Mhm.
looking to make that step into entrepreneurship, right? And it sounds like you made that decision out of school to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah,
You've kind of already gone through the patterns of like, hey, entrepreneurship's about repetitive failure, right?
yeah.
Learning, constant improvement. And it seems like it got you to the place where then now you exit, right? And you're sitting there going, okay, I've got 120 employees. I'm at this point. Was it a decision that you made? Were you like, hey, I'm ready to exit and grow it and take this to to do it the way you did? What did that process look like when you got to that point?
Yeah, and actually, there was no intention to sell at all. Wasn't even on my radar, to be candid. As the story goes, I was using a fractional CFO actually at a time, and he had split between us and another agency in the marketing world, digital world, and they were a pre-click agency focused on consumer, customer acquisition. And he came to me originally with the idea and was like, "Hey, would you ever consider a merger?" And that's where he started to educate me on because he was really tenured guy on risk premiums and how that, like for instance in M&A, like 2 plus 2 does not equal 4. You take 2 million EBITDA businesses or $2.5 million businesses, in theory, if you can integrate them nicely, that's not worth the sum of the parts. It's worth more than that, right? Because the risk premium adjusts, et cetera, and you generally can get a bigger multiple. So as I started to learn this process, the generalities of it, I was like, that's pretty interesting. There might be a fast track here. In the middle of those conversations, we were talking about becoming a sponsor, so to speak, right? And we would effectively be a platform that private equity would get behind. And so I started to ask, like, well, who are these bankers that we're going to work with? And one of the bankers that I was introduced to, kind of midway through the conversation, was like, look, man, I got to interrupt you. What you've built is exactly what some of the larger groups that I work with are looking to acquire. Would you simply just entertain a conversation? And, I was like, why not? As we started to have those convos, it became clear a bunch of them were keenly interested. And I, went to him and I was like, look, I don't really want to sell. I got great cash flow. We're growing, 50 to 80% a year. I mean, I'm just in a good spot. And he's like, it's an MBA you're going to get in a short period of time on what the market likes about you, what they don't, and what you can go work on. And I thought that was brilliant advice. And so, he's a good salesman too, but he convinced me
Yeah.
to go forward with it. So I got engaged with him as a banker he was excellent, by the way. And yeah, I got offers, LOIs started coming in. And candidly, between you and I just had a number in my mind that I thought the company was worth, and anything that came at that or higher, I was going to do it. And the number came in higher than that. And I went with it. And it was, I can honestly say now, a year looking back, it was a great decision. Zero regrets.
Awesome, awesome. So for those listeners, right, maybe kind of approximately how big were you? How much, what was it, the multiple, and what did the deal structure look like?
Yeah, of course, of course. So, we weren't by any means a large organization compared to some of the groups you probably talked to, but EBITDA wise, we were in the 2 to 3 million EBITDA range. They're pulling about 6 million in revenue, so we had really, really strong margins there.
Great margins.
And then we
Especially if you were in
ultimately
growth mode at the time, that's still really good margins for growth
Very
mode.
good growth.
Yeah, totally, totally, right. And we had we had a lot of valued assets with the company in terms of intellectual property and things of that sort. But the growth mode, you're absolutely right. And we got a multiple that was, just put it this way, it's effectively a double-digit multiple, right? Which for an agency or a company of that size is kind of unheard of. I thought we'd come in at like a 5, maybe a 6, if someone really wanted us a 7, and we came in multiple turns higher than that. So again, to me, that showed a tremendous amount of commitment from the buyer and the PE group behind them, that they really valued what I had built. They valued me, they valued my team. And it was great. It really was. And so in terms of the breakdown of the deal, I wanted to roll forward as much equity as I could. I'd had a great company for a while, some good cash flow. I wanted to
Is
take
that where
enough
you
cash.
started, or is that what they were trying to push you towards? What did
That's
where did
what I
they come
asked.
from?
I asked for it.
Huh?
I asked for it. Yeah. So I was like, I want as much equity as I can. Cause I'm like, I want to take some cash off the table to just, kind of a proverbial pat on the back and change the life a little bit, but I don't need to 80% sell out. So we were able to roll forward, basically split down the middle, if you will, about half in cash and about half in equity, which
And
is
the group was,
unusual.
this is a private equity group. So give us sizes, like how big was the group that came to you? Were they a fairly large, group?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. The PE group, I mean, they've been around for, I don't know how many billions they've deployed. I mean, they've got several funds with multiple billions in it. And so, for us, being it was small potatoes, but I mean, I could speak all day about how professional and amazing it was working with them too, to be candid, and still do work with them, obviously. But they're a pretty well-known outfit. Anyone in the PE space would know who they are, and they were backing, of course, the strategic who bought us, right? Who is a big player in the digital space.
Yeah, I've got a very good friend of mine. He sold his business, did something similar. He rolled a little bit more than 50%. And then that group ended up having 5 exits along the way.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. Over 10 years, he had rolled and he did well, right? He could have taken money off the table and he said, hey, I would have been fine. He's like, but I went ahead and rolled a big chunk in because I believed in the private equity group and I believed in this group.
Yeah.
And man, he said, we got another exit 3 years later. And then we took another one and everyone got bigger. And he doesn't talk numbers, and nor do I need to. I know what that company, the last one went for, and I'm like, holy crap, like that is exciting to see. And it doesn't always happen to where you get rolled over that many times, but he just kept rolling and rolling and rolling because, like you, he probably had the money, had some success prior. It wasn't about taking that; it's about that. Hey, how big can this ultimately get?
Yeah.
Pretty exciting.
That's verbatim the methodology here. Exactly. Is exactly the talk track I had with my team with them. And we are still looking at good prospectus here about a year in, in the next 2 to 3 years, maybe we'll look to run a process, but that's exactly it. And looking to effectively, just to talk not dollars, but maybe numbers, is to make that 50% worth considerably more than the entire deal value was last year. That's the goal. And there's totally a path to do it. And we're hitting marks. So.
No, it's funny. So even if you're a buyer, right, this is an important thing to really know, because we actually had this problem with a business that we're buying right now.
Yes.
Right. Where the seller couldn't get his head around the fact he's older, right? He knows that the business is healthy, right? But he's like, if I just hold on to it, he's going to make more than what it's worth, in the next 18 months. And, it was a struggle for him. That was the one thing, right? The value is the value. But he got to know us. He really liked us, right? And he saw about some of these guys, right? They get to the point where they're making good money, but to take it to another level is a whole nother set of work, so to speak, right? And they know the things that they need to do, but they don't want to, they don't want to do it, or they want a partner to do it. And so with the seller, he kind of got to know us better and better. And it ultimately led to him saying, you know what? He went from not wanting to seller finance or seller carry anything to him basically wanting another bite at the apple, because he knows the business can do what it can do. And, he's retaining a big chunk of it, and everybody walks away happy, right? We have a good partner on the deal, person that knows the ins and outs, that's always there. He's not just checking out, so to speak. And at the same time, he's betting on us to kind of do what we're going to do and take it to another level. And so, if you can kind of get that buy-in from a seller or a buyer, I mean, it's a really, really good match.
Yeah, it is. And from the the selling perspective, it's like, on one hand, it's just an objective investment criteria. I mean, this group that you are in theory investing in, are they on an upward trajectory? Do you believe in the future of it, et cetera? I mean, that's obviously one consideration, but unlike other traditionally passive investments, you can affect the growth. Because like in my case, they're like, you're on the C-suite team. Like you're running this department. We need you agents. I can affect the growth of my own investment. And so I think we nailed the number and the distribution on the split because it's like great alignment on my end, great alignment on their end. I have total blinders on because like, why wouldn't I? Right. Yep. And so to me, that's why I really think it was a great fit and a great process. And yeah, I can't speak highly enough to it.
Yeah. So really quick, during the negotiations, right? Was there much negotiation? Or did you just let, hey, here's how I want the deal on 50-50. What do you guys offer? They offered you and you just went forward, right? Or did they try to talk you down to a 30% ownership or something like that?
The LOI was very clear that they were super serious about this and that this was not a let's see if we can get this at a discount. It was more of this is a valued asset. And I appreciated how they looked at me and my team. Let's make sure that we get this because this is going to be a great company to buy. And their offer reflected that. So I didn't feel it was necessary nor appropriate to even try to negotiate it up. It was already better than what I was thinking. The only thing I did negotiate was a bigger amount for my team. I wanted them to have options in terms of rolling forward equity in their company, the buyer's company. That was the only thing that I negotiated. And we were able to come to agreement very quickly on that. So yeah, there was very limited negotiations on that respect. The entire acquisition and due diligence process, due diligence is always really tough, but was generally speaking pretty smooth.
Awesome. Well, you hear some of those horror stories that you roll in, you work for now a private equity group, and now you have a job. We've had a couple of those podcast interviews. You've not experienced any of that, huh? You're still kind of a free solo, free entrepreneur, or has some of those little bit of handcuffs been put on you a little bit?
I mean, there's no question. I'll be candid, there's handcuffs there, but I don't even look at it as such because again, it's like, there's nothing I should be focusing on other than this. Like I have so much. Yeah, I mean, I've got, I'm deep into the 8 figures invested in it. And it's like, if I can 2, 3, 4x that, like, again, what am I going to do differently in the next 2 years that's going to yield that type of return? Nothing. And on top of it, I'm doing what I love. I'm doing the same thing, just on a bigger scale with bigger clients. So it's like, this is exactly where I want to be. So to me, again, it was one of those where alignment was perfect. And yeah, I don't want to do anything else. I'll be candid. And we'll talk about it maybe once we do that next exit, maybe then. But at this time, it's, I'm loving it.
Yeah.
So
question though for you. So, obviously you rolled 50% forward, right? How did they value it into the parent company? And, did you have to get comfortable with how they were valuing the parent company? So that way they'll know what your essentially cash converts into as equity to the parent company, or how did that part go about?
Yeah, I did. The good news is they had just closed on an acquisition. They were themselves had already gone through a bite of the apple previously. So the private equity firm that bought the strategic who bought me had just 18 months prior finished their deal, buying it from another private equity firm that had backed the strategic before that. So we had a pretty healthy baseline as to the valuation. And based on the trailing 12, 18 months growth where they were at that point, again, I didn't feel like they were overvaluing by any means. And so that was an easy conversation. And yeah, I mean, it was as simple as that, right? And I had good leadership around me and a good team around me. This wasn't coming from ignorance, but yeah, I thought they did it the right way. They really did.
That's a great story. I mean, we usually hear the other side of it. So, I mean, it's great to hear the ones that really work out well. And, you're a year into it, right? And do you feel like your equity's already grown in value, or has it been more of setting up kind of the foundation to start to really explode from there?
Oh, it's 100% grown. Yeah, we've hit our 2024 marks. Like we're bearing down on it right now. It's 100% grown. Now we're still way short of where we want to be before we run a process. But I mean, in theory, if we were to run, the climate's not great for M&A right now. We'll see after the rate cut if it improves. But like in theory, all else being equal, if we ran a process right now, there'd be a nice return.
So what advice would you give some of our people, our listeners, from one entrepreneur to another? What are some of your takeaways?
Gosh, I mean, so much, right? I mean, I guess to the process itself, one thing I'll say is, I think PE gets a bad name, unfortunately. What I found in my process, there were frustrating points that came up. Almost every single one of those was due to my ignorance, not them trying to pull a quick one. Like as an example, I'll just be candid. I had never had a larger scale, multi-8, $10-million exit like that. Like I didn't.
It's by far the largest transaction most people go through in their life. Period.
Yeah,
I mean, it's exactly what we're facing with our seller too. I mean, every one of them, there's a lot of us educating them and explaining even stupid things like, did you know you're gonna have to pay tax? Well, if we just structured it this way, you wouldn't. Kind of the
right or indemnity holdbacks or net working capital adjustments. These were foreign terms to me, and when you first see it or hear it, you're like, what the F? But then you learn about it and you're like, it makes perfect sense. And it's exactly how it's supposed to be done. I give a lot of credit to the deal team on the PE group. They were, I mean, I could call them to the point almost inappropriate times on a weekend like this and that. And they were always responsive and they answered every question. And even when I'd flag things, I'd be like, hey man, this here doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Oftentimes they'd be like, you know what? We get why you're looking at it like that. Let us get back to you. And then we just have a conversation about it and figure it out, right? So it's exactly how negotiations are supposed to go, in my opinion. But one bit of advice for anyone listening, if you are pending a transaction or thinking of going through one, there's going to be things that come up that you're not expecting. Again, like they're going to withhold some of it, Again, these are indemnity holdback. It's just part of the deal. There's networking capital holdback. It's just part of the deal. It all makes sense at the end of the day. I'd say don't get frustrated, just get educated on it, and then assume that it's probably you who are the ignorant one, not them. Not that they're just trying to a quick one on you and take advantage of your naiveness. It's probably you just being ignorant. That's what I found 95% of the time in the process.
Awesome. Got it. And then moving forward, right? You guys are still out there looking to find more businesses to buy, right?
Yeah. We have a very strong M&A department this year. Obviously, the climate's been a little challenging, but we as a parent organization are always looking for great businesses, in this case, in kind of that digital space. So yeah, we're anxious to find the right fits, and cultural integration's everything. I know it's, again, super cliche to say, but like, boy, is that important. Once you get through all the fun parts and you start getting into the meat of working together, it's like, you better hope your teams can get along, because if they don't, it's a recipe for disaster. And thankfully ours, I mean, it's been a 10 out of 10 fit. So yeah.
And you're also looking for more clients, right? I mean, you're always looking for customers, right?
Always looking for clients. We're just bigger and better and got a, really, really part of the reason I agreed to the acquisition, and it's public. It's Power Digital is who bought us, right? They're a good size agency based out of San Diego. They have a world-class data intelligence team, like world-class. It's like the type of department I had wished I was building all along. So to me, I was like, I can't wait to work with that team, right? So we're always looking to expand that out. We're always looking to find new clients, of course, and just affect change to their bottom line using our models for growth and conversion optimization and some of the other services we provide.
All right, perfect. Awesome, and wealth of information on this one. So
very huge,
it's exciting stuff. So let's go ahead and hop into our rock around, where we basically ask the same 3 questions to all of our listeners.
All right, Ned. So your first question is, what do you like to do in your free time?
I travel a ton. I'm always traveling. Love to experience different cultures and such. I'm a big foodie, so trying different cuisine. I love golfing. I was a big golfer as a kid. I actually gave it up when I started my company, the one that I just exited, and then picked it back up again last year. So I'm a big golfer and starting to get into auto racing too. I guess that's just the thing people do when they exit a company. I don't know why, but like
that or airplanes. I've been flying airplanes. That's my new
thing. Yeah, exactly. So getting into that now, which is cool. And honestly, and working, I love working. I still pull pretty heavy weeks, and it's a lot of fun. I don't really find it as work. It's a lot of enjoyment. So.
See, Casey's got the golf game. I'm in the wrong industry for not knowing anything about golf. So I got to pick that up here. I did get a postcard yesterday from some company, some VIP golfing experience. But anyways, they must have heard this podcast and heard me kind of not knowing anything about golfing. Next question, most memorable moment in your business journey?
I mean, it's got to be the acquisition, right? I mean, it was such a life-changing event, and
was it the day the money showed up in the account, or was it just the whole process? I mean, what was it, right? For some people, it's just seeing the zeros in the bank. And they're like, oh my God, I've never had that much money.
Honestly, it's probably this. It was so interestingly, I used to do a retreat for the team, and I would do it the first weekend of December every year. And it started with 8 of us, and then it was 120 by the last year. The team knew we were going through this acquisition, right? Everybody knew. The whole goal was to close the Friday before the retreat. We closed at 11:45 p.m. Friday night. And so my whole team, we were in Curacao. I had us all at a big resort there. They were all on the beach and knew it was coming. So they set up this whole party with champagne and everything. And so when I walked down to the beach to be like, we're done, they were all, everyone's spraying champagne, and it was the whole company together. Oh, wow. That was a really cool moment, because it was just me for a long time. And now it's this huge family. That was a really special moment. Cooler than when the money hit, I'll be honest. I mean, obviously it's great, this and that, but it's kind of just great, it hits and you're already expecting it to hit. It's not really a surprise, but that was cool too, of course.
Awesome. But, All right. Last question. What is your favorite tool or resource?
Tool and resource. I mean, it's got to be Google Analytics, just because that's like the common denominator on analytics for websites. And that's what I deal the most with. And so because of it, I've been able to yield some pretty good proficiency in there. So I can do a lot in that tool. And so just by nature, I'm in there the most and enjoy it the most.
Awesome.
I'm a little jealous because I still can't figure any of that stuff out. So
Yeah,
I still remember the day Google Analytics came out. I used to be a big web developer back in like early 2000. I still remember it being brand new and trying it out for the first time. So
when they bought Urchin, that was the first one that it came from. Yep.
Awesome. Well, Ned, how can people get a hold of you?
LinkedIn always works. So just Ned MacPherson, you'll see me as a CGO for Power Digital, or even just my email, ned@powerdigital.com. Feel free to reach out, any questions, or certainly happy to help any businesses that are looking to scale.
All right. Awesome, Ned. Well, no, love the story, man. So definitely a lot of information for the audience on this one.
Yeah, you bet. Appreciate you guys having me. Thanks so much.
Yeah, very nice, Ned.
Thank you.
Thanks. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the M&A Launchpad Podcast. If you've enjoyed today's podcast and would like to support us, please leave us a rating and a review after you listen. I'm Casey Minshew, and I look forward to talking with you next week.